Your business's cash flow describes the amount of money coming into and leaving your business over a certain amount of time. In addition to helping you meet your current financial obligations, understanding and managing your cash flow helps you plan for the future, seize opportunities for growth, and make sound business decisions. If you are the recipient of Smart Start Workforce grants funding, you will want to pay attention to how your cash flow is affected by the grants. The information contained here has been prepared by Civitas Strategies and is not intended to constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. The Civitas Strategies team has used reasonable efforts in collecting, preparing, and providing this information, but does not guarantee its accuracy, completeness, adequacy, or currency. The publication and distribution of this information is not intended to create, and receipt does not constitute, an attorney-client or any other advisory relationship. Reproduction of this information is expressly prohibited. Only non-commercial uses of this work are permitted. In today's conversation, we will explore what is cash flow and why it's important to your childcare business, especially when you receive Smart Start Workforce grants funding. We will learn what financial information you need and how to get started creating your own cash flow. Cash flow is different from your monthly budget. Once you have a monthly budget, you may still have questions, such as, how much am I making over time? Will I have enough cash to pay myself or to pay my bills? And how much am I really making? If you have any of these questions, learning about cash flow can help you answer these specific questions. The cash flow forecast is one of the best tools you can have for understanding how healthy your organization is in the near term. Predicting cash flow is not about budgeting. It's about understanding how much money you are taking in minus how much money is going out. The challenge with cash flow is that you can have a lot of money that's owed to you, but if you don't have money on hand to pay the bills, then your business can find itself in financial trouble. Knowing how much cash you have in the near term becomes a way of not only knowing what's coming in and going out, but also gives you a heads up about upcoming challenges with having enough cash available. The following cash flow exercise will guide you through the process of making an important cash flow prediction for your business over the next 6 months. We've purposely chosen the 6-month time frame because it's a nice snapshot that allows you to make decisions a few months away, but it's not so long that many things could change. Being aware that the funding received from Smart Start Workforce grants must be allocated to your payroll expenses will allow you plan to use the funding as required. Once you get the hang of this exercise, you will likely want to make it one of your weekly business habits. Let's look at building cash flow in 5 easy steps, which are gathering documentation, picking a time frame and scenarios, listing income, listing expenses, and reviewing trends. Step 1. Gather documentation. Pull 2 to 4 months of documents that show your income and expenses. Here is a list of documents that can give you the information you need. Documents showing income and expenses, bank statements, credit card statements, Venmo transactions, utility bills, Smart Start Workforce grant statements, any other records of ways that you receive or spend money. Try to use actual amounts when possible for greater accuracy. If you don't have actual amounts for everything, it's okay to use an average. For example, you might need to use your average electric bill because you don't know exactly how much electricity you'll use over the next few months. Step 2. Pick a time frame and scenarios. This is not a budget. Try to choose a time frame that's long enough to allow you to make decisions past 1 or 2 months, but short enough in case challenges or changes happen down the road. We think 6 months is a good time frame, but adjust as needed and choose what works for you. Never use more than a year. When creating your cash flow, be mindful that Smart Start Workforce grants will be awarded quarterly. You should be able to identify the months when you will receive funding and include the funds in the appropriate months. You should also consider scenario planning, which can help your organization generally, but particularly in times of great uncertainty. Through scenario planning, you can articulate changes that may happen over time so you can see and plan for their potential impacts. Let's look closer at what we mean by scenario planning. Though you can use any number of scenarios, typically it is good to develop 3. 1. Best case, where revenue and expenses shift to ease the stress on your business. 2. Base case, usually the status quo, if the future plays out as you currently expect it to happen. 3. Worst case, where revenue and expenses will trend in ways that could happen and would result in a more difficult position for your business. To build the scenarios, identify the most significant factors and how they may trend in each scenario. Make sure you consider factors that are on the revenue and expense sides. Try to keep to just the most important factors, the 3 to 5 most likely to change in the future, which could have the most significant impact on your organization. For example, a potential increase in your healthcare costs by 50% would be a likely factor for your worst-case scenario, whereas a 1% increase in office supplies would likely not be included. Smart Start Workforce grants funding you will receive will not be a deciding factor in your scenarios, as the funds are already allocated to your payroll increases. Make sure you include a list of the factors. Writing them down will make sure you remember how you got to that particular scenario you've created. If you can, articulate the cost impact in actual dollars, such as what happens if you get that $10,000 grant, or a percentage, such as a 10% increase to the cost of supplies. This table shows how you can capture your assumptions for each scenario. As you run through the rest of the steps, do one set of tables for each scenario so you can see the impacts. Step 3. List income. Categorize the money that comes in each month. Be sure to always include an other category. Some example of income categories: subsidy, fees, Smart Start Workforce grants, other. Take a look at this example of how you might list out your sources of income. Step 4. List expenses. Categorize money that goes out each month. Again, be sure to list an other category. Here are some examples of things you would list in the expense categories. Personnel. Remember to include that your payroll expenses will increase as you meet Smart Start Workforce grants requirement of spending funds on meeting the required wage floor. Taxes, rent, utilities, vehicle, phone, food and snacks, cleaning, loan payments, bank fees, and other. You will also want to remember that with the increase in wages funded by Smart Start Workforce grants will also come an increase in payroll taxes. You will want to have calculated these payroll tax increases and have them added to your personnel expenses. The Illinois Network of Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies, INCCRRA, has resources available to help you calculate payroll taxes. Take a look at this example of how you might list out your sources of expenses. Step 5. Review the trends. Your total cash flow over the next 6 months will be the total amounts of revenue minus the total amounts of expenses. You can also see the cash flow for each month by subtracting your total expenses from your total revenue for each month. Looking at cash flow month by month can be helpful because some months your revenue might be less than expenses, but other months it might be more. This tells you when you need to save money from one month to another. Keep in mind that the month you receive your Smart Start Workforce grants funding may not be the month in which the funds are spent, as your funding may cover a quarter's worth of wage increases. This will often result in an influx of money, and you may be tempted to consider this money increased revenue. Remember that you will need to be aware that these funds are only to be allocated towards the wage increases. Smart budgeting will help you make sure to allocate the funds appropriately and can help you from spending the funding prior to your payroll increases. You do not want to end up with circumstances where you do not have the funds available to pay for the wage increases. Avoid the temptation to spend the funding elsewhere, expecting that future revenue will cover the increases. If you were to have a decrease in expected revenue, such as shown in your worst-case scenario, you do not want to have spent the grant funding prior to meeting your obligation to implementing the required wage increases. Take a look at this example of how you might calculate your monthly and total cash flow. Now that you have your cash flow projection, you should ask yourself a series of questions for each scenario to understand any trends that appear. 1. Are you profitable? 2. Are there months that are feast or famine? 3. Which month has the highest profit? 4. Which month has the lowest profit? 5. Which categories are your highest expenses? 6. Which categories are your lowest expenses? 7. Which categories are your highest revenue? 8. Which categories are your lowest revenue? If you've completed your analysis and you find that you need to cut some expenses to increase revenue, here are some suggestions on how to improve your cash flow. Increase enrollment. If you have room in your program, this can be the most cost-effective way to build revenue. Start by asking your current families if they know of other families in need of care who they could refer to you. Also, reach out to the Child Care Resource and Referral and other providers to find out if there are families who need care. Also, reach out to the Illinois Network of Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies, INCCRRA, or other programs in your area to find out if there are families who need care. Consider weekly versus monthly billing. If you currently charge $1,000 per month, most people assume that works out to $250 per week. But some months have 5 weeks, which translates to an additional $1,000 per year per student. This method can be an effective way to increase cash on hand if you have families who consistently pay on time. If you have families who often miss payments, this can be difficult because it may mean chasing down money. It can also mean more trips to the bank and more data entry on your end. Speed your billing and collections. You should bill as soon as possible, and don't let money owed to you wait. It may be a difficult conversation with families, but the cash is critical to keeping your business and the service they rely upon alive. Consider child care management systems that can help speed billing while also cutting other costs or using Venmo or similar apps for fast payment. Another option is to have parents pay before services are rendered. Find the best prices for toys, materials, and equipment. Buying used toys can save you significant amounts of money, and you can use sites that give you access to high-quality, pre-loved items. Check out your local Facebook selling groups. Goodwill and the Salvation Army often have toys available. Try visiting these stores early in the week after items have been dropped off over the weekend. Using a credit card for business expenses that has rewards in the form of cash back or gift cards you can utilize for additional purchases. In addition, look for ways to get discounts through large purchase programs like the one available to NACE members. Look for recurring subscriptions to cut. Take a look at the different services and online memberships that you have. Often, they accumulate over time. We don't realize how many we actually have or the impact they have on monthly cash flow. Determine which subscriptions you need and which you can live without. Consider federal programs. 2 federal programs can be claimed retroactively for activities from March 13, 2020 to September 30, 2021. Families First Coronavirus Response Act Leave, FFCRA, can provide you with payment for staff members who are at home caring for themselves or family members with COVID, or for children who are not in care or school. The Employee Retention Tax Credit, ERTC, is for small businesses that had reductions in revenue or had to follow social distancing orders. Both programs can provide significant funds for child care businesses for past activities. And finally, use automation. Look for ways to stretch your time and your staff's time through apps and other programs. A child care management system, such as Alliance Core, ELV, can help with billing, attendance, and other functions. LegUp can manage your waitlist, reducing the time you may have a spot open in your program. Online systems like Gusto and FreshBooks can help you with payroll and bookkeeping. Even a free program like Google Docs can be used to collect attestations and other forms online. Do you have any questions? The Illinois Network of Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies, INCCRRA, will administer the Smart Start Workforce Grants. INCCRRA will provide technical assistance, answering technical questions, and helping with the application process through its website and via email. Email grants@inccrra.org with questions. New to Smart Start Workforce Grants is local technical assistance through the Local Child Care Resource and Referral (CCR) and R system. This will provide local grant experts to provide technical assistance and answer questions. Find your local expert using the QR code on the screen. And be sure to visit the Civitas Strategies YouTube channel for more valuable resources to support you and your business.